Quevia Chana Vida Tito to Chobito Jogavada Sadini Celebido Shimpao Sadune Latin who Paul Savida.
Shadow says, yesterday Shadow has explained how the yogis get understanding when their practice is improving. They can easily discriminate the physical and mental phenomena separately. The object as the physical phenomena and the noting mind as the mental phenomena. The mental phenomena is different and the physical phenomena is different. They are not the same. In this way, yogis get the understanding through the practice. Today also Shadow would like to explain same aspect.
The Namaruba Prisiranya Yenta Pizon La Recama Diti Visuti Sura Chipare Ati means Sinche Hubolima.
When the discriminative understanding of mental and physical phenomena gets maturity, or the yogis gets the understanding in the condition of fully ripened state, then there will be the purity of views.
Titi Viduri people are Sujava, one by 6 Savida Pone, Pay body. Pone Pimuli, Pogaipa Pone, Lucy Asai Chinda Gavida, Swimmers or Shulu. Shuya, I will live on a secret suicide or a kite. Faniga Tamari, Samari, Abi or a kite. Pomu Kore, down in Lucia the body. Tali Panchati Dora. Pomu Kore, down in Lucia Gata, Yoke. Erali Mati Dora, Pamishati Dora, Name. Todu Paina Kaita Male. Painalu, Shumalu, see as I be Chinaka bit of Malu. Yo, you Dora, Pamu Kore the body, a Juptia, Erali Matida and the Yara. Kurema Marali, Pure Lady, Ninian Lady. Mira Taunadina, Luta Lady, Pura Nuira, Era Lady, Kera Lady, Sati body. Boring, Labido, see as I Chinaga Bido, Swimmers are shoot. I only chat at the cha, you chat the cha. Quevia video body, Chajana, Nale Dwareka. Kuna Diodina and Miata, she Diodina and Lue, Dinapaga, Luelushi. Puguta to Angadu Yojami Masura, Mashivu, Darego, Medilu, Pugu Yelu, Tadua Yelu, Nayelu, to Yelu, Yojami Mayelu, Corny Jarabe, Mangaro, Dinio, no lady she, Puguta to Angadu Yojami Mashi, Yonamia, she there, Dilu Via, Shinins were Nale Dwada Neve, Meguga, Mashiu, she looked hard, Swedi Havoli. A deep me, a Timami and Maria, and I leave out that than she and that.
While the yogis are noting, beginning from the primary object, rising and falling, with persistency and accuracy, then during the noting moment of rising, although the yogis are just noting the process of the abdomen, but because of the precise awareness and concentration power, they can see in that rising process tension, movement, vibration, and so on and so forth. And these are the actual rising process as the physical phenomenon. So they can see those physical phenomena as they are. And the noting and those physical phenomena is the object to note. And there is the mental process, mental phenomenon, to note the rising object as rising and knowing the phenomenal aspects as the reality is the mental phenomenon. So in this way, the object is different and the noting mind is different. They are not the same. So they will get this discriminative understanding while they are precisely noting the rising process as rising. In the same way, during the noting moment of falling, there also they can see the actual falling process as well as the natures of the physical phenomenon. There is the losing process of tension, and there also might be movement and soft type of feelings, or there may some kind of other feelings, sometimes heat, sometimes cold. All these are physical phenomena, and they could be really experienced by the yogis. And that process of falling is the physical phenomenon, and the noting mind as well as the knowing of the elementary forces of that falling process is the mental phenomenon. So they will get the understanding that physical phenomenon is different and the mental phenomenon is different. They are not the same. When the meditators understand with their own experiential knowledge the separate aspect of the physical and mental phenomena, then there won't be any confusing ideas in their mind which they had previously. Previously they think there are only person, being, man, woman, and so on and so forth. But after that, when they do the practice and they experience what kind of natures are there, elementary forces are there, they will just find out they are the physical and mental elementary forces. They cannot see there as a person, as a being, as a man, as a woman, as a self. Nothing there. So the view which they get through the practice is right view, because they are seeing the reality as it is. Before they are just trying to think themselves, there are something substantial thing. So in this way, they don't have proper understanding. Which is not there, they think there is. Which is there, they think there isn't. But through the practice, they will have real understanding. What is there, it is there. And what is not there, it is not there. So that clarity of understanding, of view will be theirs. Therefore, they will get the purity of view through the practice.
to senior shall say Kalamale, Junen and Nane Boli, Koyavido, Diboniero, Sujabazu, Joase Kanama. Jigli Josaga Savido, Songareti, see us I chain that guy with the swimmers or shulu. Oh, Pido Tetorali. How can he don't be like the body? Poor Pido. Nunyan Libori, sure she should live. That is all don't care a yogi. What do I live? Did I tell you? And dear live. What we don't tell what I have you the ball, Erali, who permits you to make another ball. Where you are. Lanze Kala Maleve, no can eat don't be neither. Here and even swear you to other. Do it, don't it, swear the body. Why you don't care? The two lady, don't a lady, swear a lady body. The body, titi, don't swear a lady, a yutia, through titi niralia, matini ralia, and the yas. Shooting a quavia thought. Throw to Matara Chiro, Lude Kama. Leave it, be it, eat it, Java. I don't get it about. Later, lay you. Mijina the Mojane, image round it, Tiba put it a camuma. But we did not get the body, Piara Verama. Pidari. Tincha Dora di Sari, I like on shout with Dora. Union and Quavia video, charge and Nati Dora. Together, Chuazeland, Chaze Kalama, Mashulushi. Yoga, Maquel, Nile, Maquel, Maqueluchi, Eladi Pinidago, Pocutavanga, Yojami Matilunari, Nagave the one, Duave the one, Yoja the one, the Mima the one, as you see. Nothing about Yojami Maga, Juani, the Slani, the Chani, the Vetina. Who she must say Kalama, Ione at the Quavia China, Vavi solution. The guy she the bow, Quabita, a puri, a lorry, a machine. Tinya ni shin bi to da la be asinya shau se kala ma yaunan kwai bi do ati mi sin je twa pon le ba.
While the yogis are practicing walking meditation, at that time also, if their noting is very precise and accurate, and they can focus their mind forcefully on the arising object. Suppose if there is the lifting object which is arising at the present moment, and their mind falls into that lifting object, then while they are lifting the foot, at that time there will be some kind of lightness, easily coming up motion. And those lightness and the movement, easiness, all these are physical phenomena in which there are the forceful element as the heat element. Because of heat element, lightness is there, easiness is there, and the yogi is experiencing the uplifting process of the foot. And that is the elementary forces of physicality or materiality. And while the yogi is noting precisely the lifting process from the beginning to the end without missing it, so at that time the yogi feels clearly that there is the easiness, lightness and upliftment of the foot. But even they can see the food, just the elementary forces will be there, and they can understand that the lightness which is there in on-lifting process of the food, and the easiness which is there on that lifting process is the physical process, phenomenon, and the noting mind, as well as knowing the lightness and easiness and easily upcoming the leg. All these knowings are mental phenomenon. So in this way they will have proper understanding. Separately, physical process and mental process. Before the practice, they just have the idea that there is some person, some being, or I am lifting, he or she is lifting, or you are lifting, or the woman lifting, man lifting. All these thoughts are there, which is actually not present there as substantial object or substantial thing. So they avoid avoid those wrong view, and they get right view as the elementary forces are there. That is why during the lifting moment they will have right understanding. Because of that right understanding, purity of view is discernible during that precise noting moment. And while you are moving your leg or your foot, at that time also there are elementary forces. Sometimes you may feel something is behind, pushing your foot forward, or sometimes you may have feeling that your foot is pulling forward. And that pulling process of movement is actually the powerful wind element. The force of wind element you can see during that moment, and you can understand, oh, there is only elementary force. There isn't any being, there isn't any person, there isn't any self, there isn't any I, you, he, she. Nothing is there, just the process of elementary force is there. And that noting mind as well as knowing that that elementary forces is the mental phenomenon, or there is only physical phenomenon and mental phenomenon. Apart those two phenomenal aspects, there isn't any personality, there isn't any being, there isn't any self, there isn't any man, woman, or any kind of standstill substances. That understanding is the right understanding, and because of that right understanding you will get the purity of view. And again, when you placing your foot on the ground, at that time also you can see when you drop your foot, gradually it falls down with heaviness, sometimes might be lightness. However, the heaviness on the falling process and the dropping process which you experience at that time, the heaviness is the elementary force of water element. Because of the water element, heaviness comes in your experience. So you can see the elementary forces only there. And you can note, you know that elementary forces. And the process which is dropping down, and the heaviness and lightness and so on, all these phenomena are the physical phenomena, and the noting mind as well as the knowing what is occurring during that moment is the mental phenomena. In this way there is only physical and mental process and physical and mental phenomenal forces. So therefore there isn't any substantial thing to grasp as a person, as a being, as a man, as a woman, he, she, it, a day, and so on and so forth. And that understanding is the right understanding. Because of that understanding, you will get the purity of view. And during the moment when you touch on the ground, there also some kind of feeling may be. Sometimes there may be hardness, sometimes there may be softness. All these hardness and softness feelings, also the elementary forces as the earth element. So therefore, just you can see the elementary forces during that moment. There isn't any substantial thing to grasp as such and such thing is there. Only you can find out the process of physical and physicality and mentality. Therefore, there is only the physical and mental process. Apart those physical and mental process, there isn't any substantial thing to grasp. That kind of right understanding will be there, and you will get the purity of view during that precise noting, clear noting moment.
ဘာကတော့ယုတ်တနတ္တတိပေါင်းစားပြီးတော့ဖြစ်နေတဲ့ဓာတ်ကောင်ဓာတ်စီကြီးပဲအဲ့ဒီဓာတ်သဘောတွေကိုသူတို့ဖြစ်ဆဲလိုက်ပြီးတော့မရှုလို့မသိတဲ့အတွက်ဒီလိုတတ္တဝါကောင်ငါကောင်အသက်ကောင်ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တတ္တဝါအစွဲကြီးဝင်နေတာပဲဓာတ်သဘောတွေတက်တက်ရှုလို့မြင်သွားပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တတ္တဝါကောင်ဆိုတာလည်းမရှိဘူးပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ကောင်ဆိုတာလည်းမရှိဘူးမနေ့ကပြောခဲ့တဲ့ဇီဝအတ္တဆိုတာလည်းမရှိဘူးယောက်ျားမိန်းမဆိုတာလည်းမရှိဘူးရှိနေတာတွေကဓာတ်တွေပဲဒါရှိနေတာပဲ
Before the practice or in little practice, when people don't know the actual elementary forces, then they think there are there are persons, there are beings, there are men, there are women, there are I, there are you. All these things which aren't there, and people think they are there. But through the practice, through the power of mental forces, when yogis discern all these things and differentiate all these actual realities which are there at the present moment, then only they will get the right understanding.
အထူးသဖြင့်တော့တက်ကွက်ပြီးတော့မမြင်ဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ပထမအတ္တခေါ်တဲ့မဟာဗြဟ္မာကြီးကစေခိုင်းလို့တတ္တဝါတိုင်းမှာရှိနေတဲ့ဇီဝအတ္တတွေကလိုက်လုံနေရတယ်မဟာဗြဟ္မာကြီးရဲ့အလိုတော်ကြဖြစ်ရတယ်ဆိုတာပေါ့လေမြင်တယ်ဆိုတာလည်းပဲဒီအသက်ကောင်လေးကမြင်သွားတာပဲကြားတယ်နားတယ်စားတယ်ထိတယ်သိတယ်ကိုယ်ရယ်ဆန်းတယ်စောင်းတယ်ငဲ့တယ်ဆိုတာလည်းဒီအသက်ကောင်လေးကပဲဇီဝအတ္တလေးကပဲမြင်ကြနာစားထိတွေ့နေတာပဲခံစားသမျှလည်းပဲဒီကောင်လေးကပဲခံစားနေတာပဲဆိုတာအတ္တလေးတစ်ကောင်အနေနဲ့ပေါ့လေတိုင်ခံပြီးတော့အလုပ်လုပ်နေဆိုတာအဲ့ဒီလိုအတ္တလေးကတိုင်ခံပြီးတော့အလုပ်လုပ်တာလည်းပဲမဟာဗြဟ္မာပရမအတ္တကြီးရဲ့စီခိုင်းခြင်းအရာဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့အဲ့ဒီလိုအစွဲတွေပေါ့လေဒါတွေဖြစ်တတ်ပါတယ်အထူးဖြစ်တာပါ
If people cannot realize all these elementary forces, then there will be the idea that the supreme being or the absolute self is there, which is very powerful, and there is the individual self or the life-giving self, which is the part of the supreme being or absolute self, and that absolute self orders the individual self to act everything. Whenever one sees, they think because of that self can see it. A self that creates to see something. And when something is hearing, at the time they think, because of self, which is the particle of the absolute self, that is why we can see, we can hear it. And if there will be some smelling, in that also people think because of self, smelling is there. And knowing that smelling also done because of the self. In the same way, whenever you touch, at that time also, people, they think the touching is there and the feeling of touching is there because of the self. Self knows everything. In this way, all those senses which people are getting in their life, they think they are occurring because of the individual self. Without that self, no one can see, no one can hear, no one can smell, no one can taste, no one can touch. Even making various movements, bending, stretching, lying down, all these functions are done because of the self. And that self is ordered by the Supreme Self, Absolute Self.
အဲ့ဒီဇီဝအတ္တလေးကောင်းစားရေးအတွက်တန်ရှင်းရေးအတွက်ဆိုင်ရာပေါ့လေဘာသာအယူဝါဒအလိုက်ပေါ့လေအထူးသဖြင့်ဟိန္ဒူတွေဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒီ self လေးကောင်းအောင်လို့ဆိုပြီးတော့ယောဂတွေကျင့်တာယောဂတွေကျင့်လို့ဇီဝအတ္တလေးဟာကျင့်လောက်တဲ့အဆင့်တန်ရှင်းစင်ကြယ်သွားပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ပရမအတ္တကြီးနဲ့သွားပြီးတော့ပူပေါင်းမိတဲ့အခါမှာအနန္တစုခဆိုတာပေါ့လေအကန့်အသတ်မရှိတဲ့ချမ်းသာရတယ်ဒီလိုသူတို့အဆွဲရှိပါတယ်ကွာဒါကြောင့်သူတို့ဇီဝအတ္တလေးကောင်းစားရေးအတွက်ပေါ့လေတန်ရှင်းကြောင့်ဤအမျိုးမျိုးတွေပြုပြီးတော့ပရမတ္တကြီးနဲ့ပေါင်းစပ်မိအောင်ဆိုပြီးတော့ကြိုးစားကြတာ
But to have the real purity in the individual self or the life-giving self, so therefore in the various religious teachings, especially in Hindu religion, they have to purify the self. When sufficient purity will be there in their self, and when that self get contact with the absolute self, then they will gain the measureless, limitless bliss at that time. That means they will obtain the liberation from this world. That kind of thought is there in that Hindu philosophy. Therefore, they are trying to do various yoga practices to purify the individual self.
အဲ့ဒီလိုပရမအတ္တနဲ့ဇီဝအတ္တကြီးအမြင့်တွယ်ပြီးတော့ထုံးကားတဲ့ကြားထဲမှာဗုဒ္ဓပွင့်တော်မူလာပြီးတော့အတ္တမရှိဘူးအတ္တမဟုတ်ဘူးဓမ္မတက်တက်ပဲဆိုတာပေါ့လေဖော်ထုတ်တော်မူပါတယ်မြတ်စွာဘုရားဓမ္မဆိုတာစဘာဝပေါ့လေစဘာဝတက်တက်ပဲစဘာဝဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တက်တက်ပဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်နိစ္စတတတ္တဝါကောင်ဆိုတာလည်းမဟုတ်နိကြည်ဝအသက်ရှင်နေတဲ့အကောင်မဟုတ်ဘူးဆိုတာဓမ္မဆိုတာပေါ့လေဒီစကားတစ်လုံးမြတ်စွာဘုရားတွင်သုံးတော်မူပါတယ်
And that philosophy was so strong, so rooted deeply, they couldn't get rid of that view and of that ideas because of the supreme power and because of the individual self. When they get together, then only they can realize the deliverance from the samsara. And in such time, the Buddha arose in India and he declared and proclaimed that there isn't any absolute self. There isn't any individual self in this world. There is just only Dhamma, or the nature of the phenomenal forces. They are not living entities, and they are not living things, or there isn't any personality or person in this world. Just only there, the nature of elementary forces.
ဒီနေရာမှာအတိညာလည်းပဲပူရှင်းစာပေဘုဒ္ဓတာလည်းပဲထိုက်တန်သမျှရအောင်ဆိုပြီးတော့ဘုန်းကြီးကခန္ဓာအတိုက်တအပွင့်တတ်ဆိုတဲ့ဒီသုံးမျိုးကိုသုံးပြီးတော့ဆက်လက်ပြီးတော့ဖြည့်ရှင်းပြပါဦးမယ်
To make it more clear, Sayadaw would like to try to explain with three aspects. With striking element and receiving element and igniting element.
အဲ့ဒီသုံးမျိုးပုံမူပြီးတော့ထင်ရှားအောင်လို့ရှေးဥစွာမြင်စေခဏမှာခန္ဓာအတိုက်တအပွင့်တတ်ဒီအဲ့ဒါဒီနဲ့ပုံစံပြပြီးတော့ရှေးဥစွာရှင်းပြပါမယ်
To make it more clear, Sayadaw will give an example during the seeing moment. During the seeing moment, there are three elementary forces working together as the receptive element and the striking element and element of ignition.
မြင်စေခဏ၌မြင်စေခဏမှာမျက်စိအကြည်ရုပ်ဆိုတာရှိပါတယ်အစင်းရုပ်တွေကိုလက်ခံဖတ်ယူတဲ့မျက်စိအကြည်ဓာတ်တစ်မျိုးပေါ့လေမှာအဲ့ဒီမျက်စိအကြည်ဓာတ်မှာအတိုက်ဓာတ်ဖြစ်တဲ့အစင်းတွေကသွားပြီးတော့တိုက်ခါတာအဲ့ဒီအကြည်ဓာတ်ကလက်ခံဖတ်ယူတယ်ဒါမှမဟုတ်သူအခန္ဓာလို့ခေါ်ပါတယ်မြင်ရတဲ့အစင်းတွေကအဲ့ဒီအကြည်ဓာတ်ပေါ်မှာသွားပြီးတော့တိုက်ခိုက်ပေါ်တာမဟုတ်လို့အတိုက်ဓာတ်လို့ခေါ်ပါတယ်မြင်ရတဲ့အစင်းတွေဆိုတာအဖြူနီအစိမ်းအဝါစသည်ပေါ့လေဒါမျိုးဒီရောင်တွေပေါ့အစင်းရောင်တွေပေါ့ဒီအစင်းရောင်တွေကအတိုက်ဓာတ်ဘာဖြစ်လို့တိုက်ဓာတ်လို့ခေါ်တယ်ဆိုတော့အခန္ဓာဖြစ်တဲ့မျက်စိအကြည်ဓာတ်ပေါ်မှာသွားပြီးတော့တိုက်ခိုက်ပြီးတော့ပေါ်လို့ဥပမာပြင်မှန်ကြည့်တဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာမှန်ကြည့်တဲ့ထဲမှာသူရှိသွားပြီးရလို့ရှိရင်အရေးတိုက်ခိုက်ပေါ်လို့ပေါ့လေအဲတော့မြင်ရတဲ့အဆင်းကအတိုက်ဓာတ်ခန္ဓာနဲ့အတိုက်ဓာတ်ပေါင်းစပ်ဆုံတွေ့လိုက်တဲ့အခါကျတော့မြင်သိမှုခေါ်တဲ့အပွင့်တက်ကလေးဖြစ်လာတယ်အဲ့ဒါနံသဘောပဲဒီမှာအဲ့ဒါပဲဒီမြင်စေခဏမှာတကယ်ရှိထင်ရှားတဲ့ဓာတ်တွေကိုခွဲစိလိုက်လို့ရှိရင်အခန္ဓာတိုက်တာပွင့်တတ်မျက်စိအကြည့်ဓာတ်ရဲ့မြင်ရတဲ့အဆင့်တက်ကမြင်သိမှုနံစုရဲ့ဒါပဲရှိတာပဲအဲ့ဒီသုံးမျိုးနှုတ်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင်မြင်စေကာလမှာဘာမှမရှိဘူးဒီသုံးမျိုးပဲပုဂ္ဂိုလ်မရှိဘူးတ attva မရှိဘူးအသက်ကောင်မရှိဘူးယောက်ျားမိန်းမဆိုတာမရှိဘူးအဲ့ဒီဓာတ်တွေပဲအခန္ဓာတိုက်တာပွင့်တတ်ဒီဓာတ်တွေပဲအဲ့ဒီသုံးမျိုးတီးပြီးတော့အဲ့ဒီသုံးနဲ့ပဲနှုတ်ချလိုက်လို့ရှိကျန်တာသုံးညပဲစုံညဆိုတာဘာမှမရှိအသက်ကောင်စိတ်သုံးနေတယ်ဆိုတော့တောင်းမြတ်စွာဘုရားကအဲ့ဒီခိုက်တာမှာဓာတ်တွေပဲရှိတယ်အဲ့ဒီဓာတ်တွေနှုတ်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင်ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တ attva ငါသူယောက်ျားမိန်းမဆိုတာမရှိဘူးဆိုတာသိထင်ရှားတယ်
In seeing, at first there is the receiving element as the sensitive eye basis. Without that sensitive eye basis, seeing couldn't arise. Therefore, it is necessary to have sensitive, clear eye base. And on that sensitive eye base, there comes the visual object as the striking element. When the visible object strikes to the receptive element, then there arises seeing consciousness as the element of ignition. These three are important elementary forces to see something. If one of them doesn't work precisely and lacking there, absent there, then seeing couldn't arise. So therefore, the receiving, sensitive, clear eye basis and the visual object, either you may say color, works as the striking element. The visible object strikes to the receptive object, and there comes the igniting force to see. Apart from these elementary forces, the igniting element is the mental element, and other two are the physical elements. Apart from those physical and mental phenomena, there isn't any being, there isn't any self, there isn't any personality, there isn't any person, and there isn't woman, there isn't man, there isn't I, there isn't you, and there isn't he, there isn't she, nothing there.
Edi khanda daita punta thumyuတွေကပထမခန္ဓာနဲ့တိုက်တာကိုရုပ်သဘောထဲမှာပါပါတယ်ဒီမှာရုပ်ဓမ္မအပွင့်တက်ကိုတော့ပွင့်တက်တက်ကိုတော့နန္ဓမလို့ဒီမြတ်စွာဘုရားကခွဲခြားပြီးတော့မိကြထားပါတယ်
Therefore the Buddha discriminated that this receptive element and the striking element are the rupa dhammas, and the element of ignition is the nama dhamma.
အဲ့ဒီနာမဓမ္မမှာလက္ခဏာရရစရပိဋုပဋ္ဌာန်ရသုံးမျိုးသူကထင်ရှားပါတယ်ထင်ရှားပုံကတော့နမနလက္ခဏာနာမမြင်သိတဲ့သဘောလေးဟာအာယုံရှိရသူညှို့ကိုင်းပြီးတော့သွားတတ်လို့ကိုင်းပြီးတော့ကြာသွားတတ်တာမဟုတ်လို့သူနာမလို့ခေါ်တယ်ဆိုရပါစို့ဖြတ်ကလေးဆိုအစင်းအာယုံလေးကမျက်စိအကြည့်တာလာပြီးတော့တိုက်ခတ်ပေါ်တဲ့အခါမှာဒီတိုက်ခတ်ပေါ်တဲ့အစင်းစီညှို့ကိုင်းပြီးတော့ကြာသွားတဲ့သဘောလေးမြင်သိတဲ့သဘောလေးပေါ့လေဒါနာမဓာတုသဘာဝလက္ခဏာဒီတိုင်းပဲသူကြည်တက်ဖြစ်သလားဆိုတော့သူကြည်တက်မဟုတ်ဘူးသူနဲ့တွဲပဲအခြားစေတသိက်နံတရားတွေလည်းပါသွားသေးတယ်။ဘာတွေပါသွားတော့မျက်စိထဲမှာတိုက်ခိုက်ပေါ်တဲ့အဆင်းအတိုက်တတ်နဲ့အရာမြင်သိတဲ့သဘောလေးနဲ့ပေါ့လေ။ဆုံတွေ့မှုဖတ်စပ်ခေါ်ပါတယ်။အဲ့ဒါလည်းနံတရားတစ်မျိုးပဲ။ကောင်းတာလေးနဲ့တွေးထိလို့ရှိရင်ကောင်းခံစားမှုဆိုးတာနဲ့တွေးရှိရင်ဆိုးခံစားမှုအလယ်လတ်အာယုံနဲ့တွေးထိလို့ရှိရင်အလယ်လတ်ခံစားမှုဝေဒနာလေးလည်းပါသွားတယ်အနီလေးပဲအဖြူလေးပဲအဝါပဲစသည်ပေါ့လေမှတ်သားတဲ့သဘောလေးလည်းပါသွားတယ်စညာဒါလည်းပဲနတရားပဲသတ္တဝေဒနာတင်ညာစေရနာမြင်ရလောက်အောင်လှုံ့ဆော်တိုက်တွန်းပေးတဲ့သဘောလေးလည်းပါတယ်ចេတနာခေါ်တယ်သူကတော့အဲ့ဒါနဲ့ပြီးတော့မြင်ရတဲ့အဆင်းထဲမှာမြင်သိတာရောမြင်တွေ့တာမြင်ခံစားတာရောနတရားတွေစုစုစည်းစည်းလေးဖြစ်သွားတာပေါင်းစည်းပြီးတဲ့သဘောလေးပါတယ်ဒါဧကဂရခေါ်တယ်အဲ့ဒီဓာတ်လေးလည်းပါသွားတယ် ပြီးတော့မြင်တဲ့ကာလမှာမြင်သိတဲ့စိတ်မှာရောမြင်တွေ့တဲ့သဘောမြင်ခံစားတဲ့သဘောစသည်တို့မှာဖြစ်မှုရင်းမှုပြက်မှုအဲ့ဒီခိုက်တံလေးရှင်သန်မှုရာအတွက်ပေါ့လေထိမ့်တဲ့ဓာတ်ကလေးပါသွားတယ်အဲ့ဒါជីဝိတ္တခေါ်တယ်ជីဝိတ္တိန်တည်းခေါ်တယ်အထိမ့်ဓာတ်ရှင်သန်တဲ့သဘောလေးပေါ့လေဒီမှာမြင်သိမှုရှင်သန်နေတယ်မြင်တွေ့တဲ့သဘောရှင်သန်နေတယ်မြင်ခံစားတဲ့သဘောရှင်သန်နေတယ်ဒီမှာជីဝိတ္တဒါလေးလည်းပါသွားတယ်ပြီးတော့မြင်သိတဲ့စိတ်မြင်တွေ့တဲ့သဘောလေးတွေဖြောင်းဖြောင်းတန်းတန်းကြီးဖြစ်အောင်လို့ပဲ့ပေးတဲ့သဘောပေါ့လေမနစိကာရဆိုတာဒါလေးပါသွားတယ်ဉာဏ်ချင်းချင်းပူးတွဲပြီးတော့ဆောင်ရွက်တဲ့ကိစ္စပေါ့လေဒါလေးလည်းထင်ရှားတယ်ပူးတွဲပြီးတော့ဆောင်ရွက်တယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူတို့ relationship ဖြစ်ပြီးတော့မခွဲဘူးဆိုတဲ့အဓိပ္ပာယ်ပေါ့လေဒါလည်းပဲထင်ရှားတယ်အဲ့ဒါကတော့အဝိနိဝကပစ္စုပ္ပတ္တနာခေါ်တယ်ဒီမှာနန္တရားမှာအာယုစီညွတ်ကိုင်းတဲ့သဘောနာချင်းချင်းပူးတွဲပြီးတော့ဖြစ်တဲ့သဘောသူတို့မခွဲတဲ့သဘောအချင်းအရာပေါ့လေအဲပူးတွဲပြီးတော့ဆောင်ရွက်တဲ့ကိစ္စသူတို့မခွဲတဲ့အချင်းအရာပေါ့လေဒါလေးတွေထင်ရှားတယ်ဒီမှာအဲ့ဒါနာမလို့ခေါ်တာပဲ
The seeing consciousness and knowing the seeing, which is called nama dhamma, it is called nama dhamma because we can clearly understand them in three ways. There is the characteristic of that nama dhamma, and there is the function of nama dhamma, and there is the manifestation of that nama dhamma. The characteristic of nama dhamma is it bends towards the object to get the object. When there will be receptive element and striking element, and striking element goes to strike the receptive element, so the igniting element arises. That means the igniting element bends towards the object to see. So therefore, the characteristic of nama dhamma is bending towards the object. And when nama dhamma bends towards the object, together with that nama dhamma, there arises another associating nama dhammas in union. When those striking element and the igniting element get together, seeing consciousness arises. When all these three come into contact, so there is some kind of connection, and that connection, the contact, is also the nama dhamma. Either you can say the nama dhamma, which is called phassa in Pali, impression. You get some sort of impression through the contact. And that phassa dhamma also there during that seeing moment. And when the contact will be there, impression will be there, there will be some kind of sensation or feeling. Either pleasurable feeling or unpleasurable feeling, or even sometimes neutral feeling. And that feeling also nama dhamma. It is called in Pali Vedana. And there is again another mental phenomenon as the perception. When seeing is there, and there is some kind of color, whether the seeing may appear as the red, or may appear as the white, or yellow, or bright, or black. These are the perception which arise together with the seeing. And that is also nama dhamma. And to get these all elementary forces, there are some kind of mental formation, which is called the cetana. Although cetana is translated in English volition, but here is the mental formation. It keeps all the phasa, vedana, sanya active. And after that, when all these factors get together, some kind of one-pointed process is there, which is called in Pali ekagata, getting all these things together as a one point. And in each and every process of physical and physicality and mentality, there are the three phases: arising, continuity, and dissolving. And within those periods, there are some kind of mental life-giving force, which is called in Pali jivitindriya, the factor of life of the mental processes. Before dissolving, because of the life-giving factor as the jivitindriya, and those mental forces are there. And there is another aspect which directs all these mental factors towards the object, towards this visible object, and it is translated as attention in English. So there is some kind of mental force as the attention to get the seeing object properly. In this way, in one seeing moment, there is the consciousness as seeing and the associated concomitants arising together. And that is the function of the nama, having the associated body together. So that is the function of the nama dhamma. And those consciousness and the concomitants of those nama dhamma never divided. They are all the time united together. So they cannot be separated. So that is why the manifestation of nama dhamma is avinibhoga, which cannot be separated. So in this way, there are the characteristic of nama dhamma, there are these functions of nama dhamma, and there are the manifestation of nama dhamma, even the single moment of seeing.
အဲ့ဒီနံတရားတွေတစ်ခုချင်းလိုက်ပြီးတော့ကြည့်ပေါ့အဲ့ဒီထဲမှာဇီဝအတ္တပါသလားဆိုတာပေါ့မပါဘူးမြင်သိတဲ့စိတ်ကလေးရတယ်မြင်သိတဲ့သဘောတက်တက်ပဲအပွင့်တက်တက်ပဲမြင်တွေ့တာမြင်ခံစားတာဒါကြီးလည်းပဲတွေ့ထိတဲ့သဘောတက်ပဲခံစားတဲ့သဘောတက်ပဲဓမ္မအဲ့ဒါဓမ္မနိစ္စတနိជីဝစဘာဝဆိုတာပေါ့ဒီဓမ္မဓာတ်တွေပဲတက်ပဲဆိုတော့ဒီထဲမှာတတ္တဝါကောင်အသက်ကောင်ရှာလို့မရဘူးသဘာဝတွေပဲဓမ္မအဲဒီပဲ
So Sayadaw says, try yourself, could you find any everlasting entity there as self or person or being apart from those nama dhamma forces, elementary forces? That receiving element is elementary force, and the striking Dhamma, Rupa Dhamma, it is also just the elementary force. And again, the consciousness which sees, that is also just the elementary forces of mentality, and the contact, and the feeling, and the perception, and the mental formation, and the one-pointedness, and the life-giving force as the mental process, and the attention. All these are Sabhava Dhamma only. Elementary natures are there. Apart those elementary forces, there couldn't be seen any separate force within them. Therefore, the Buddha said, all these physical and mental phenomena are the elementary forces. Apart from those forces, there isn't any living entity, living being, or any person.
Kuna khanda ne taita karo rupa yau lu so ba. Edi yau ma tabawa lakhana ba shi daro so rupana lakhana rupan so ba. Khanda ne taita မြင်စေကာလမှာခန္ဓာနဲ့တိုက်တာရုပ်တွေဟာရုပ်သဘောရုပ်အစုဟာရုပ်ပဏလက္ခဏာဖောက်ပြန်ပြောင်းလဲခြင်းလက္ခဏာရှိတယ်။ဖောက်ပြန်ပြောင်းလဲတယ်ဆိုတာအပူအေးအဆရှိတဲ့အကြောင်းတွေကြောင့်ငကူအခြေအနေကတမျိုးတစ်ဖုံဖြစ်သွားတဲ့ဟာကိုဒါဖောက်ပြန်ပြောင်းလဲတယ်ခေါ်တယ်။ဖောက်ပြန်ပြောင်းလဲရုံနဲ့မဟုတ်ဘူး။ကြေမွပြိုကွဲပြီးတော့ပြန်ကျဲတဲ့ဆောင်ရွက်ချက်ကိစ္စလည်းသူမှရှိတယ်ဝိကိရဏရသဆိုတာပါဒီမှာဒါတော့ဒီယုတ်တရားတွေမှာအပြကတပိจุပဌာနဆိုတာနန္တရားလို့တိတတ်တဲ့သဘောမရှိဘူးအာယုမရှိဘူးအာယုမတိတတ်တဲ့သဘောနန္တရားကအာယုရှိတယ်အာယုတိတတ်တဲ့သဘောသူ့မှာတော့အပြကတပိจุပဌာနဆိုတာအာယုမတိတတ်တဲ့အနေနဲ့ထင်ရှားတယ်ဒီလိုဆိုတာပါလေဟုတ်တယ်ဒီမျက်စိကသူကမြင်တော့မဟုတ်ပဲအာယုံသိတယ်မဟုတ်ဖ ೇನೆ သူကတော့အာယုံသိရအတွက်အထောက်အကူအခန္ဓာအနေနဲ့အထောက်အကူပြုတာဒါရှိတာမြင်စရာအဆင့်မှာလည်းပဲသူတိတတ်တဲ့နာသဘောမရှိဘူးဒါပဲအပြကတပိစုပဋ္ဌာနာဆိုတော့အာယုံမသိတတ်တဲ့အနေနဲ့ထင်ရှားတယ်လို့ဆိုပါတယ်
And the receiving element and the striking element, they are called as Rupa Dhamma. In Rupa Dhamma also, there are characteristics of Rupa Dhamma, function of Rupa Dhamma, and manifestation of Rupa Dhamma. Then what is Rupa? It is said, Rupana Lakhana. Rupa Dhamma has got its characteristic as changing. Rupa Dhamma changes. Not just only minor changing. It has got the function as the dispersion, a scattering function, a spreading function. And the Rupa Dhamma is changes because of various cause and conditions. Because of heat, it changeable. Because of cold, it changeable. And so on and so forth. And the Rupa Dhamma has the manifestation as not knowing the object or not having any object to know. Nama Dhamma has got its object to know. Therefore, Nama Dhamma bends towards the Rupa Dhamma, the object, and it knows the object. but the Rupa Dhamma doesn't have that kind of power. So therefore, the manifestation of Rupa Dhamma is not knowing. So in this way, there are three phases to understand the Rupa Dhamma. Through the characteristic as the changing, and through the function as the dispersion, and through the manifestation as the not knowing. Not having any object to know.
မြင်တဲ့ကာလမှာခန္ဓာဖြစ်တဲ့မျက်စိကြည့်တဲ့ထဲမှာရှားကြည့်ပေါ့ဇီဝအတ္တရှိသလားဆိုတာပေါ့လေမရှိပါဘူးအဲ့ဒီခန္ဓာပေါ်မှာတိုက်ခိုက်ပြီးတော့ပေါ်တဲ့အယောင်အမျိုးမျိုးပေါ့လေဆင်းရောင်မျိုးမျိုးအဲ့ဒီတဲ့ရှားကြည့်စအတ္တဇီဝအတ္တရှားကြည့်တာမရှိပါဘူးမြင်ရတဲ့အစဉ်ရုပ်တက်တက်ပဲလားပဲဒီထဲမှာဘာမှမရှိဘူးဒါမို့လို့တတ္တဝါမဟုတ်ဘူးအသက်ကောင်မဟုတ်ဘူးဟုတ်တာကဘာလဲသဘာဝတွေဆိုတာပေါ့လေရုပ်သဘာဝတွေပဲဆိုတာပေါ့ညဆောက်ကြဟောပါတယ်
So Sayadaw says, try yourself to find out in receptive element. The receptive element is the sensitive clear eye base. Could you see there any kind of individual self hidden into it? You cannot find any kind of such thing which is hidden into it. And the receptive element, which is the sensitive clear eye base, it is just the element of materiality. There isn't any self hidden into it. And what about the striking element? Is there any self hidden in that striking element? A striking element is the visible object. Or even we can say just some kind of color. Can we get any substantial thing in that striking element as the visible element? That is also just a visible object. There isn't any kind of substantial force hidden into it as the self.
ဒီနေ့တဏှာကြီးပြည့်သွားပါပြီဒီနေ့ဒါတော့ပဲထောက်ကြပါစို့နောက်မှကြာမှာပဲဆက်လက်ပြီးတော့ခန္ဓာဒိဋ္ဌပုဏ္ဏတိပြောရှင်းပြပါဦးမယ်
Sayadaw says 1 hour is already gone, so therefore he will try to explain these matters again tomorrow.